Welcome to Breaking the Narrative, a Stand With Us Canada podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Primorano, and in each episode, we'll dive into the fight against anti-Semitism and the delegitimization of Israel. From student leaders to community advocates, we'll explore how people are standing up and making a difference. New episodes drop every other Thursday, so let's get into this week's conversation. Welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Narrative, a Stand With Us Canada podcast. My name is Jesse Primorano, and I'm your host, and today we are joined by Neil Oberman. Neil Oberman has been practicing law in Montreal for 25 years, and now a partner at Spiegel Ryan LLP, focusing on civil and commercial litigations with a focus on public injunctions. Neil has used that expertise since October 7th to support students in Montreal, and is now the Conservative candidate for the upcoming federal election in the Mount Royal riding. Neil, great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great honor. Thank you so much.
The honor is ours, really. I mean, we've had some fantastic speakers on, the Elika Labons, the Natasha Hausdorffs of the world. And, the one thing we hear from all of them when we talk about what's going on campuses is the gratitude we all feel to people who took their professional careers and decided to refocus things on our students and to use their expertise and their, abilities to support our community where they need us most. Before we get into that, I would love to just talk about your journey to today. What sent you into law in the first place? And more importantly, what moment did you realize that you had to shift your focus to our students?
And I want to say just at the onset, many people have participated in this journey. There are many unsung heroes that maybe you don't even know about behind the scenes. Some other people have been in front of the scenes. A very close collaborator and lawyer of a great lawyer, Michael Hollander. There's David Assor, Daniel Brook, Nick Keeney, many people who have put aside their personal well-being. It's bravery before Billings, Jesse. That's what it is. People put aside their financial well-being in order to take a step forward in ensuring the protection of our communities at large. So, I'm not a really complex person, simple guy, simple person. I was brought up here in Montreal. My parents gave me a great education. My folks are just regular people, no lawyers, no doctors, no engineers. My father was a hardworking man. He worked for Bell. My mom was a secretary. I have a brother. And they gave us a great gift. It's the gift of knowledge because they gave us a great education. And, throughout my life, I've been challenged. I wasn't always the best student and I didn't always have everything that I wanted. But, adversity builds special character, right? Life's not about winning all the time. It's about winning sometimes and losing to know, what your lessons should be. So I've struggled through my life. So for the young folks out there, don't worry, everything's going to be fine. Keep on your pathway. I've struggled, but with help of your community, help of your family, help of other people, you will succeed. So yes, I'm a lawyer, but I don't identify myself only as a lawyer. I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, and I'm also something else that we all need to learn to be. You know what that is, Jesse?
Tell me.
A survivalist, okay? We need to learn how to be survivalists. We need to adapt to our circumstances, improve our way of looking at things, and reject the past, because doing the same thing over and over again is not getting us anywhere again. And that is why I decided to step into the ring of politics, not because I want to be a politician, which I'm not, by the way. I'm a regular person, a citizen that believes that we can do better, because I'm tired of politicians telling me the same old story, giving me the same old narrative, and producing the same old effects, which is zero. I stand here today as a concerned citizen, as a lawyer, and as a father who's concerned for his son's well-being. Me, myself, and I is not the candidate. We are the candidate. We will bring change. We want to be better. We want to be protected by the government that we pay for. So my journey led me to here, not because I wanted to be here, but I am now here and I plan on doing a really great job, is because we need people who will stand up, be heard, fight back, and use the rule of law as a shield at the appropriate time to protect our communities.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to hear all this. I think there are so many people across any profession that, have felt that desire to speak up and to stand up, but haven't necessarily had the courage. And, you said it's bravery over Billings, but I'll take it a step further. For many people, it's a question of bravery over, career, right? And wondering how will it affect them professionally. So I'm wondering for you and, all the incredible folks that you mentioned that have been working with you, on these injunctions and supporting the students, what was that like for you, weighing the pros and cons, and how did you get past that hurdle of saying, yeah, this might hurt my future, not just my pockets, but my career, and move past that?
Didn't even, very truthfully and directly and without any hesitation, didn't even consider it for a millisecond. Why? Don't know, don't care what other people think. I care about what's right and I care about what's wrong. And what's right is to stand up when people are suffering. It's right to stop hate in all forms against all people at all times. It's right to be a good citizen. It's wrong to sit back and let things happen. It's wrong to think only about yourself. It's wrong not to consider the impact of your inaction on the outcome of other people's lives. That's wrong. It didn't take me any time to jump into something because of inaction of our government, inaction of those people who are supposed to protect us, didn't do their job. So lawyers could do good, by the way, Jesse. We're not all just worried about our billings. There are many lawyers. It's a career of helping people. Sometimes people misconstrue lawyering for some sort of lucrative business that we're devoid of caring for folks. It's completely the opposite. Everybody I know that practices law does so with humility, with respect, and with caring for their clients. So I did what I was trained to do. But I was also trained by my parents to know the difference between right and wrong. It's not between right and left. It's between right and wrong. And we know that in our community, we have a history of doing what is right, a history of helping people. And so I simply did what I was brought up to do, what our religion and our community stands for, and I did it because it needed to be done.
And we could certainly use a lot more people to feel that way. And I hope that those listening can take some inspiration from your words. Now, just to take it back a second, we're talking about, right and wrong. And, we've seen the way things have evolved on campus over the last 12 months. Was there, I know you said you didn't think about it, but was there a moment? A lot of people listening to this podcast, let me just segue for a second, they know what's happening on a big picture scale. But when we tell them the actual incidents taking place on campus, they're horrified. Was there one thing you remember that stood out to you and you said, yeah, I have to put my full attention on this right now?
Yeah, I tell this story often. So I was contacted by a local rabbi, a Chabad rabbi, and he said, Neil, I have a favor to ask. Can you talk to some parents? I said, sure, I'll talk to anybody. It was right after October 7th in that vicinity. I said, what's the problem, Rabbi? I said, well, listen, these people are new immigrants to Canada, and their son goes to a school. I won't say where, but it wasn't somewhere where typically parts of our community would live and go to school. And they said every time their son goes to school, he's confronted with kids in the schoolyard, and they keep asking him, do you support Israel or do you support Hamas and Palestine and Gaza? And he kept on saying, no, I support Israel. And he was beaten by these kids. And his parents had told him, when you go, make sure you tell the teacher. So what happened was he goes back to school one day, and he's in the yard, and he comes in, and they're pushing him, and they're telling him bad things, and he calls out to the teacher who's supervising the children, because there's a monitor, and the teacher says to the children, keep beating him until he says Gaza, keep beating him until he says Palestine. I said at that point, that's it. I'm not going to stand for it. No good human being, regardless of their race, religion, creed, or color, should stand for that. Young people are our future. Young people will bring the change required along with the people who are here. If people cannot recognize the threat matrix before them now, then nothing will help them. No new government, no new politician, no new red flags. Everybody needs to know that this is not about one person. It's about our whole country, how we live, where we live, what is fair, what is wrong, what is safe, what is unsafe. And when that happened to me, it inspired me that I was not going to sit back, not use the skills that I was able to graciously obtain through hard work and my parents' loving and caring investment in me, and I was going to invest back in our community. And by the way, since that date, myself and many others, including my very close confidant on these legal files, Maître Hollander, have been fighting like there's no tomorrow, there's only today, and we've been very successful. And we will continue to be successful because we are right and they are wrong.
And I think you're right when you say the young people are the future of our community, but it's the folks like us, maybe like yourself and like Michael with more experience that have to shape the circumstances and the ecosystem which these young leaders are growing up. And right now we're seeing whether it's administrators of universities, politicians at every level failing that next generation, and it's incumbent on us. And so I'm curious, before we jump in more specifically to the work that you guys have done on campus. Have you identified issues, whether it's at the Quebec level, Canadian level, with political, cultural, legal environments that have allowed us to get to this place, that have allowed anti-Semitism to fester the way it has? Specific issues that exist that you've identified?
So the answer to your question is yes, 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 and yes, because government is not acting responsibly at all levels, federal, provincial, municipal. Why? Because leadership means to lead. Leading means taking decisions that are hard to take, but are good for the greater good and the greater citizenry. And quite frankly, our government, the federal government, has been derelict, negligent, responsible for their inaction, for their conduct of separating people, creating different groups of people, fueling the classic disagreements with people. And then when the time came to stand up and do something, it's not us, it's them. It's not them, it's somebody else. It's not the federal government, it's the provincial government. It's not the provincial government, it's the municipal. It's not the municipal, it's Santa Claus. I don't know how these people function in their microcosm of falsity, but here's what I know as a human being who lives in a society where young people should be respected and everybody should be respected. Government's primary function is to protect its citizens. The federal government, its officers, its directors, its agents, successors, and assigns in the Liberal government have failed everybody, period. And this is not a campaign stump interaction comment. It's a fact check. And anybody who can support those people does not understand what has been done to them over the currency of the last 18 plus months and longer, quite frankly, because this is a buildup. So my suggestion to all the young people listening to this is stand up, be heard, take your voice back, vote those folks out, take back what has been stolen from you, which is your dignity and your future, and we'll have a much better country that's inclusive, respectful, and diverse without them, by the way, the Liberal Party.
Yeah, and I think that what you're saying is readily observed by anybody Jewish or otherwise about like this the state of our country over the last 10 years that we've seen with the federal government. We'll leave it at that, but I'll say also it's a bipartisan issue too. I mean, we have a conservative government at the provincial level here in Ontario, a provincial government that's responsible for enforcing the rule of law on our streets, and a Solicitor General that's not prosecuting hate crimes, speech crimes, etc., against the Jewish community. What is it that they're missing? Why are we not seeing hate crimes prosecuted in Canada to the extent that they should be?
It's a simple answer. It's called bravery. And politics, sometimes it mutes bravery because of other reasons. I can't speak for Ontario. I don't live there, and I'm not going to live there because there's way too much hate there. So does Quebec has it, but I'm not going to exchange 4 quarters for 4 quarters, right? Not going to happen. Here in Quebec, it's very simple. No, listen, I'll talk straight with you. I'm not going to give you any BS talk because that's not my style. I'm going to tell you here in Quebec, we have a mayor in our city who's derelict and incompetent. Her administration is more concerned with bike paths and green spaces than ensuring people are protected and safeguarded from rampant hatred that's been through our city 10 times over in the last 18 months. But she's very concerned about bike paths and green space. Great. That's going to be very helpful. The bottom line is that government has to stop playing politics with our lives and do their duty. Their duty is to protect us. They need to enforce the law. Now, I hate the excuse that everybody gives. It's not me, it's them, it's not them, it's other. Look, the criminal code is a federal statute. I understand the RCMP doesn't come in on their horses to downtown Montreal trying to arrest people in the middle of downtown Montreal. But there's something called prosecutors. And they could appoint a lot of prosecutors in the federal level, which the Conservative government will do in order to fight anti-Semitism in a way that's never been fought before because the Liberal Party created the problem, fostered and fueled the problem, and now we're going to have to clean up the problem for generations because it's so inbred into some cultures. Yeah, so the answer is we're going to enforce the law. We're going to ensure that Canadians are safe. Young people will have a safe, respectful place to live. Pierre Poilievre does not have to pander to the Jews when we represent 1% of the total population. We're 400,000, and that's not even a 400,000 voting people. But yet consistently, over every single step of this ridiculous situation in Canada, that's unprecedented, he stands up, he says clearly, we will respect you, we will protect you, dignity will return, wear your kippah, wear your Star of David, keep your mezuzah on the door. Did the Liberal Party do that? Did Mr. Trudeau go down to the campus at McGill or Concordia, put his foot down there and say, I reject this? No, because they want votes. They don't care about young people. They care about voting people who will vote for them. So where was the great Prime Minister? Now, Mr. Carney doesn't come in after being anointed, right? After being anointed, what does he do? First thing he says, turn on the electricity over there. Okay, why don't you turn on the rule of law over here? That might be a good idea. And why don't you start talking about finding solutions? But no, he's pandering. And then what does he do? They send $100 million elsewhere when Canadians can't feed themselves, house themselves, get a doctor, get a CT scan, and by the way, go to school safe and secure. You're sending $100 million there? Yeah, that's a real smart thing to do. You know, I'm kind of appalled. I'm appalled because good Canadians, whether you're Jewish, whether you're Greek, whether you're Christian, who cares what you are, they would be appalled because that's money we could use here. And by the way, why don't you get off your ass and go down and do something as opposed to meddling in everybody's business elsewhere. Get your own house under control before you tell other countries how to get their house under control. That's my position.
And again, when we talk about getting the house under control, I mean, you talk about social services, green space, bike lanes. I mean, we have here in Toronto, you know, safe, I'm sure you do as well, safe injection sites that are positioned across the street from elementary schools. It feels like our municipal government is so focused on protecting everyone from things that aren't necessarily the foremost issues facing them, right? Like they're not saying what is actually impacting the safety and security of our streets today. They're for some reason pandering to these groups, and I guess obviously we know it is, you know, sort of the progressive PC culture. But what is it like? Is there more to it than just that? Is there more to it than
Sure.
just the culture? Go ahead.
I don't want to hijack your podcast and turn it into, you know, Neil Oberman's rendition of how Canada needs some alterations to its sleeves and to its pants to make sure that we can all walk around safe and secure. But the reality is it's the liberal mentality that is no longer liberal. It's an extreme form of liberalism that is so disastrous to each and every one of the Canadians living in this country that it's almost like a joke. And I'll say why it's a joke. Because they talk about safety and security and they talk about prosperity, but that's only for the Liberal Party. That's not for anybody else. The reality is there are no safe injection sites because the act of injecting yourself is inherently unsafe. So when you foster this woke culture of I'm going to go shoot up near a school, and by the way, myself and Pierre Poilievre this summer did a press conference downtown near a school that has a safe injection site, and he said it clearly. There is no such thing as a safe injection site because it is inherently unsafe. So there is no good hate. And it doesn't matter whether you cachet it with, oh, you have the liberty to do this. It's the same concept. It's the perversion of reality, right? That's why these folks who run around our country blocking buildings and colleges and universities, it's free speech. It's freedom of assembly. It's like a safe injection site. It's absurd. It's not safe threatening people. It's not safe throwing things and breaking windows. It's not free speech. It's free hate. That's what it is. They've created an environment of free hate.
And it's liberty for one at the expense of another, right? Everything you just mentioned is all about creating freedoms for some, you know, small segment of the population at the expense of the other. And right now what we're seeing more than ever is that it's the Jews whose liberty is not to be concerned about. And I know you've been a part of Jewish Montreal for, you know, decades, and you went to school in Montreal, you grew up. Can you tell us a bit about, like, why do you think Montreal has become one of the worst cities in North America for anti-Semitism? What is it about Montreal in particular, outside of the current mayor? Because this obviously isn't a problem that has, you know, just come to light in her term, right? Like, this has been going on for decades.
So, you know, it's a complex question, and there's multiple elements to why, particularly, Quebec has become the hate capital of North America for anti-Semitism. I want to say good Quebecers reject this comportment. They reject this. I live here. I studied in Quebec City for 3 years at Laval University. I went to the University of Montreal. all of my friends who are French Canadians, they love their country, they love their province, and they reject this type of hate. So I would not say it's unique to Quebec in the sense that it's out there. Why is it fostered and grown in this? It's because of ineffective, derelict leadership here specifically, because we have a unique and distinct type of derelict leadership in the mayor, and may I point out, in the federal government. So Quebec is like a breeding ground. Why? Because it's allowed to foster, it's like fungus, right? It has the right conditions to grow in. And I want to say that all my friends who are French Canadians do not accept this. They do not think it's good for them. They do not think it's good for us. And I don't want to earmark one group over another. Hate has no boundaries. Hate can be coming from different areas against different people. But when you hate on one group, you're probably going to hate on another group. And that, my friend, is not acceptable. What happens to one community always happens to another community.
And so I feel that way. And, we always say, right, what starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And I think historically, the Jewish people have tried to be friends of, other marginalized groups around the world, to be as supportive as possible. And I can tell you from my seat, at least, it's been difficult to watch the relative silence from the world over the last 19 months, not just about what happened in Israel, but what's happened here ever since. You are now on the campaign trail, right? You're meeting with Montrealers, Quebecers. What are you hearing from them? Do those who, like you say, we stand against all forms of hate, but do they acknowledge the extent to which anti-Semitism is threatening the Jewish survival in Quebec?
Well, the answer is depends where in our riding. Our riding is composed of 4 distinct areas, and the cultural, linguistic, and religious differences are different in each of the ridings. In a good portion of the riding as a whole, yes, this is a key issue. Because if you have no safety and security, you have no prosperity. If you have no safety and security, you have no future. If you have no safety and security, you have no rights. And the reality is you can't buy safety and security, because safety and security is a question of a feeling. It's also a question of a reality, and it's a question of support. And I would say that most of the people that I meet, and I've knocked on over 10,000 doors in the riding, this is a number I know for sure because I was there. And what I want to tell you is that people have different concerns, but people feel, generally speaking, that their country isn't where it needs to be. So no fancy, it's broken, let's fix it. It's more like it's not working for us and for a lot of people, and we don't like it, and we want change. It's your vote, it's your voice, it's your change, bring the change. People want change. This is about change this election. Yes, and one of the things people want to change is their safety and security. And one of the things people want to change is their prosperity. And one of the things they want to change is their government. And another thing they want to change is the concepts that we cannot do better as opposed to we will do better. And those are the things that I think will resonate very well on April 28th, 2025, when, God willing, with the help of all good Canadians from all facets of life, we will collectively reject the Liberal Party, its surrogates, its agents, its successors, its assigns, and we will bring back responsible government to Canada. Not only will the Jews be safe, the Hindus will be safe, right? And the Christians will be safe, and the Muslims will be safe, and everybody who believes in Canadian values will be safer.
And I think that's the thing that frustrates me the most about all this, is that I watch it all unfold and I think to myself, how clear it is for us to see where this leads, right? That once they're done with the Jews, it's on to the next and the next and the next, and that this is the destruction of the values that we hold sacred as a Western democracy, right? And so when Pierre, like you said, stands up for 1% of this country, he's doing it, I think, because he sees where we're going, right? Is that it's not going to stop here, and it's going to continue to erode, our values. And I mean, I don't really have a question here. I guess it just frustrates me because I don't think we're only crying out against anti-Semitism, we're crying out against the destruction of Western values.
This debate is about Western democratic principles, and the reality is, I always say that, and thank you for reiterating that. And I tell people, what you fight for here is not for the Jews, it's not for the Christians, it's not for the Anglophones, it's for our basic ways of life, the way we here in Canada perceive ourselves. And the reality is that we are under attack. We're under attack by people who have come here, whether it be legally or otherwise, with the view of changing the fundamentals of this society in an unlawful, undemocratic, and aggressive way. We must wake up. And in French, we say, réveillez-vous, wake up, because we need to wake up from this slumber of liberal enslavement to the point where we need to understand how this was created to ensure that it is not reproduced thereafter. And may I point out that during the Passover, if I may, and I'm not an overly religious man, but I do believe in God, and I do believe that our history teaches us something. And, I've had the great luxury of speaking with many rabbis and clerics. And, history tells us a story here during Passover. And during Passover, when Moses, with the help of God, was able to get the release of all the Jews in Egypt, some Jews decided that they could not leave because of their psychology, that they were still had a slave mentality. And I say to the listeners here that we are not slaves to the Liberal Party of Canada. We are not slaves to their ways. We can reject it, and we can, like we left Egypt, we can leave the Liberal Party. It's okay, because the Promised Land is a lot better. And the Promised Land is not Israel, but it's a Canada under a majority conservative government led by Pierre Poilievre, with Neil Oberman as a member of parliament sitting in cabinet. That is a place where there will be a lot of safety, a lot of security, a lot of prosperity, and we will no longer have to hide who we are, what we do, what we think, because we will be embraced under the protection of government, which is its primary function.
It's a beautiful analogy, and I think that the story of Passover is so relevant now, obviously more than ever, telling the story of a time when we were, subjugated to slavery and found our way back to peoplehood, but also this story of making our way to Israel, right? And that being something that's so core to who we are. And I think, like what you said is true, is that these stories right now are being rewritten before our eyes. History is being changed before our eyes. And we need people like you in our government to make sure that our government is not going to lose that plot as well and just willingly allow history to be rewritten. We need our voices to be heard. So excited about that and thrilled about the campaign and obviously wishing you, tremendous luck down the final stretch here. Though luck is probably the wrong word, because I think you've got this covered with hard work.
I'm happy you recognize that, Jesse. By the way, I say that all the time. I said luck is important, and nobody's going to reject luck. But here's what I'm rejecting: being lazy. I'm a hard worker, and I'm not only going to work hard now, I'm going to work hard later. I want to say something for the record. Good relations with Israel is good for Canada. A relationship with Israel, a safe Israel is a safe Canada. A safe Israel is a safe Toronto. A safe Israel is a safe Hampstead or Côte St. Luc or Montreal, because safety there means that those folks over there are controlling entities who are trying to destroy Western democratic society. So when we aid our allies, which has not occurred in Canada under the Liberal government, and I reject anybody who thinks otherwise, if they want to show me one piece of evidence that the Canadian government has supported Israel during its time of crisis, please write me and send me something that I can look and study. But I tell you, I reject it. And I'll tell you this: when we reestablish good relations with our neighbors down south and our neighbors over there, everybody here will be a lot safer and a lot more secure, because what happens there inevitably spills over to here. And that is why we cannot allow this government to take the reins for another 60 seconds, not even 60 seconds. They need to be ejected from the House of Commons, obviously legally and in accordance with democratic principles, but they need to go.
I will not argue with you there, and I know unfortunately that we've only got so much time left ahead of us, but I did want to dive a little bit deeper into some of your work on campus. So I'm going to pivot if that's okay, and I just wanted to. I think you and I, look, we're in this fight. Our students as Emerson Fellows in Montreal are, very familiar with you, have worked with you, and so, I sit here aware and confident, aware of what you've done, but sometimes I forget that, the listeners may not be as familiar with the details of everything that you've accomplished and the way that you've supported our students. So I'm wondering if you could, in a few sentences, maybe just give us a bit of a rundown of the work you've done and what you've accomplished on behalf of Montreal students over the last 19 months.
I want to be very clear. It's not the work that I've done. It's the work that many people have done.
Forgive me. Sorry. Yes.
I just don't like to take, and one thing about me, I don't need any kudos. I need to survive. And anybody who helps me and my family and my friends survive is a hero. And there are many heroes. So let me tell you what we have done collectively. We've pushed back. We have fought back. Not in the way those folks fight. We don't block buildings and we don't yell and scream at people. We use the rule of law. And what we have been successful at doing is instilling in our students a great sense that they have people who care for them. And many people care for them. There's the Federation that cares for them and people in the community at large that care for them. So what have we done? We've used the law to create bubble legislation. This is a fancy word that, the Liberals now want to incorporate into the criminal code while they haven't done anything in order to create any safety for anybody. That's like the burglar selling you a cheap alarm system to your house and keeping the code and saying, oh, no problem, everything's good. So they go out and they say, we're going to give you this, but they create the problem. They don't do anything to avoid the problem, and then they say they've got the solution. Hence, the burglar keeping the alarm and selling you a cheap alarm system and then saying everything's fine. So, hey, I reject that, guys. So let me tell you what real people do who care. They go to court, they file injunctions. McGill, Concordia. We have taken lawsuits where nobody's taken lawsuits. Why? Because everybody says you can't do it like this, you can't do it like that. I reject that narrative. I reject the I live in a box concept, and I will tell you, and I will tell it to your listeners, only we will protect ourselves. Only the rule of law properly implemented and followed is a guideline for outcome. So let's talk about Concordia. We took a lawsuit, we sued them because they need to be responsible because bad behavior cannot go unpunished. And the courts will adjudicate that. And then during the 1 year, they call it memorial for October 7th, what do? They go out with the week of rage. What do? We go and we get an injunction. What do the police do? Oh, can't touch those people. No, the mayor says no. But then the mayor says, I never told them to do that. Again, we act. Where is the government? What are they doing? What are they doing? They're playing politics with our lives, and I reject it. So what do we also do? I took an injunction with my colleagues to get rid of the hate encampment, not the encampment. You need a precursor. Hate encampment. What do? They occupy lands, threaten people, demoralize students who, by the way, ended up not being so demoralized because they're brave students and they're fighters. And we took an injunction. Oh, but Neil, you lost. Dude, I didn't lose anything. We fought back and we went to court and the court said words matter. I invite those people to be considerate of their words. So, law's not binary, right? It's not like apples and oranges, black and white. There are nuances. So what was the thing? Sit back, do nothing, wait for the apocalypse? No, we went and we took action. 2 young students, one's not even Jewish. She stood up. And she had no obligation to stand up, but she stood up. And then our young Jewish students all jumped on board. I, with a lot of people, set a trend there. And by the way, McGill then copied it. When they copied our Concordia injunction, they went out and got their own injunction. And I'm happy. But they have a lot more work to do, and stop being woke on campus and stop letting people occupy your campus. Just this week, they got an injunction against SPHR at McGill, but don't give them any gifts for that. They created the problem because they let them go on campus. And then when they were told they're on campus, they say, it's not me, it's the SSMU, it's the student union. So let me be clear, okay? This passing of the buck is going to stop. The day I get elected, you will be very sure that the message I will give will be unequivocally clear. It'll be so clear, there'll be no room for misinterpretation. And that message is this: your days of hate are over. It's over for you. We will not tolerate it. If you're on a student visa here and you're not studying and you're causing mayhem and havoc, you know what's going to happen? The rule of law will apply. A process will apply. And then once somebody adjudicates or revokes your visa, guess what? You're going to get deported. And you don't like the word? Sorry. Tough luck. Because that's the problem today. Everybody wants to talk about rights, but not for the people who need them the most. So I reject that. And by the way, University A, B, C, D, E, you're getting $0, nothing from the federal government, not even a penny if I have anything to do with it. Even if I'm sitting at the desk, I will tell people, no money, you're getting nothing. You clean up your campuses, stop treating the Jewish students like garbage, stop being irresponsible, do your duty, and then maybe you'll get some money. And you don't like it? No problem. Wait for the next election and see if you can find somebody to run against a popular person who wants to bring back stability. Me, personally, I reject it. If I had a choice for my son, he's never stepping foot on a university campus here because, quite frankly, they need to clean their act up. That's my view.
You're the man. I could listen to you go for hours. I mean, this is like, it's so sad to hear you say things that sound like so standard in terms of what we should be expecting as Canadians, as humans, but we don't hear it that much. And so to hear you talk with such clarity and conviction, means a lot to me, and I'm sure to our listeners as well.
Jesse, I want to tell you why it's clear. Because I don't need a job. I have a job. It's called a human being and citizen and lawyer. I don't need to go to Ottawa. I want to go to Ottawa so we can clean up the mess so that people can go back to their daily lives. The difference between me and everybody else is they're vying for their job. I have a job, and that's why I'm very committed to this, and that's why I don't have notes. That's why I said, you ask whatever question you want. You're going to get the same answer from me all the time, 100% of the same concept, which is honesty, truth, and directness. You don't like it? No problem. Don't vote for me. No issue. Trust me.
Which is so interesting, right? Because it's really the case. You talk to these politicians and it's always something, they're shifting, they're talking to this person about that. You speak from your heart, right? Like you're talking about the things that are important to you, the standards you feel we should be held to as Canadians. And like you said, there's no shifting in the answers. There's no change of pace. It's always straight, to the same goal, which I really appreciate. So let's talk for a second about those goals and about, what has to change for these universities to be a place that you or anyone else would feel comfortable sending their son.
Well, I think the first thing that the universities need to do is they need to change their culture of this concept of, liberalism on campus. They always say, oh, but, everybody has a right to their opinion. I said, no problem. They just don't have a right to hate, aggression, and violence. And we need to ensure that those internal regulatory bodies that are charged with the administration of the codes of conduct, they do something and not talk about doing something, and then not be staffed by people who say, well, everything's fine in the world and this is all good. It's because that's the problem. And then what we find out is they give too much leeway to people to do nonsense, right? As opposed to cutting down the SPHR on campus, which they've said is illegal to be on campus based on their own things. They never did anything to enforce it until it was too late. Despite I have personally written letters on behalf of students. Students have talked to the various administrators, and they always say it's not us, it's SSMU. They invited them back on. And by the way, SSMU can't talk about it. There's a court case, can't say anything about it because, I'm the lawyer representing students against the SSMU. But I would invite your listeners and viewers to go look up SSMU and the folks there and see who exactly is doing what to whom. University campuses are a place of learning and exchange of ideas. You don't have to have the same ideas. You don't even have to agree with people. In fact, you could dislike people. That's okay too. But here's what you can't do. You can't block students from going to university. You can't block people from having a safe and secure environment. You can't intimidate people by fostering this concept of what you believe anti-Semitism is when you're not even Jewish. No, you can't do that. No, it's not acceptable. No, I won't allow it. No, we won't tolerate it. And you better wake up because there's going to be a reckoning here in one day. And the rule of law will guide us on the outcome. But I can assure you this. And I'm not, trust me, I'm in the business of offending people, and apparently I do it quite well. It's not, I don't do it because
Join
I
the club.
Want to. It's good. Yes, but I talk to the truth, and young people are powerful and dedicated and supported, and they have the power. The power that they have is to say what's going on, reject it. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're educated, whether you're not, guess what? You get one vote. So use it. Your voice, your vote, your choice brings change. It's a simple mathematical equation. On April 28th, young people are going to bring change. These are the people who will no longer tolerate the concepts that are coming out of their government that's doing nothing to protect them. The university campuses have been the battlefield for one simple reason. You know what that is, Jesse?
Tell me.
Okay, I will tell you. When you demoralize the leaders of tomorrow, you try to eradicate your culture and your future and your community. So it's a little bit like going back in time. You know that person will one day be a leader, so you try to destroy them before they become the leader. So by demoralizing young people on campus, it's well thought out. They have a book, they have a plan. The plan is make them so unsafe, so demoralized that they will pick up and leave the country. They'll go elsewhere. And that's how they try to eradicate the future leaders. But guess what? It's not working. You know why? Because they're standing up. They're being heard. They're breaking the narrative. They're pushing back. They're using their skills. They're using lawyers. They're using their rabbis. They're using their friends. And this is where they made a bad calculation. Those people, those haters with a capital H, I won't define who they are, those people failed to calculate the resilience millions of the Jewish population. For 5,785 years, people have tried to kill Jews, starve Jews, enslave Jews, take their assets. Guess what? I'm here, you're here. They have not been successful. There's been greater enemies than these people, and they won't be successful. This I can assure you.
It has been so amazing and inspiring to see the way these kids care and the way the young adults, not kids, the way they stand up on campus. I sleep just fine at night, despite everything going on in this world and everything that we do at Stand With Us Canada every day, knowing that these kids are the ones carrying us into the future, that they're the ones fighting on campus every day. It's really amazing. And again, what's been more amazing has been to see that it's not just this small group that's been the same faces, the same people. It's growing, it's morphing, it's changing. There's Jews, there's non-Jews. I mean, the number of students speaking up is amazing, but there are still many who feel really isolated and very afraid in many cases, and I'm wondering from your perspective, whether it's a student or a parent of a student who might be listening, what do our students need to do better to understand their rights or to exercise their rights as Canadians on campus?
To the parents, you raised great kids. Your investment is going to pay off in ways that you don't even imagine. Be strong. Have faith in them. Know that your hard work will pay off. Know that behind every student is 20 lawyers, doctors, engineers, accountants, rabbis, woodworkers, electricians, plumbers. Everything you can think of is behind those students. Not only Jewish people, non-Jewish people. Have faith that there will be a better day. And here's what you really need to do. Don't drive your kids crazy. They are good kids. They have good compasses. You have given them the tools to navigate this journey. This journey is not being taken alone. We're all taking this journey. Together we will come to where we need to be, where we are safe and secure and prosperous. To all my friends out there, I am not your leader. I am your co-collaborator. We together will bring this change. Never put it in one person. It's never about one person. Unfortunately, politicians say me, I. I talk about we. It's not his story. It's our story. And our story will be great. They will be writing about what's been going on here for centuries, on how this community stood up, protected itself. Regular, simple people like myself and like yourself said, we're not taking this. And that is how legends are made, by doing and not talking. If I have one regret, Jesse, I have one regret. I didn't do more. I could have done more. But I'm one person, and Michael Hollander is another person, and David Assor and Daniel Brook. We're one people, but together we're many people. And I will tell you this, I sleep very little, by the way. I don't sleep 8 hours a day, and I certainly don't go to the gym 2 hours a day. But you know what I do? When I do sleep, I sleep really well, because I know the future is going to be better, and that the future has the custodian in these young people, in people who will take our future and make it better. So that is what my regret is. I didn't do more. I could have done more. And I can tell you, when I get to Ottawa, there will be no regrets. We will do great things, and we will do them together.
Neil, I love ending on a message of hope, and typically with the context of the conversations we have on this podcast, I have to prompt the guest and say, okay, well, after all this, where do you find hope? But you've naturally led us there. And, I really appreciate your sentiments, because we share them. We're blessed to see firsthand, 100 plus students across Canada that are standing up in the way you describe. And yeah, quite frankly, sometimes there's a silver lining. And of all the difficulties that have come out of, the last 19 months, the only positive is to see what our future looks like. And Neil, on behalf of everyone listening, on behalf of all of the students, not just in Quebec, I want to thank you and Michael and your whole team. I wish we could have had them all on, and maybe one day we will. But I want to thank you guys, because I know you don't do it for the recognition, but not only have you supported those students, you've inspired other legal professionals around the country to follow similar paths and to do similar things. I can tell you, in Toronto, we saw the same thing after you succeeded in Montreal. They were trying to follow suit here. So thank you for everything, for your inspiration, for joining us, and we'll wish you the best of luck on the rest of your campaign.
Jesse, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I want to leave your listeners and your viewers with one last very important message. And this is a message that has to be taken to heart. Don't give up. Keep fighting. This is a battle for our existence. We've had greater fights in the past, but we've always succeeded. With us standing together, we will break the false narrative.
That was, again, I don't know if that was intentional or not, but on breaking the narrative, to end like that was just perfect. And together we can, together we will. I really hope everyone listening can follow those words of inspiration. Neil Oberman, thank you very much for joining us and for everything you've done. And we'll hope to see you again soon.